guys, good morning, or good afternoon, or good night. Welcome to my channel, welcome to Brandy Reads Books. I'm so excited to start this. It's been a long time coming. I'm super jazzed, and yeah, let's just get right into it. So I'm kind of starting at the end, doing a January wrap-up. I know January's been over for a while, but it's the start of the year, it's the start of this channel. I didn't want to skip these books because I had a really good start to my 2022 in terms of reading. I had 2 5-star reads this month and I didn't want to just like skip over them. FYI, if you see me referencing this, I'll probably do a whole video on this at some point. This is like my book annotating journal. So instead of like actually going through a book and then like marking it up and highlighting it and, you know, like highlighting quotes and like taking notes in the book, I don't do that because if I were to like ever sell the book or donate it or whatever, I would lose the notes that were in it. So last year I started this. I just buy a Moleskine. This is their paperback. Is it the A5 one? I don't know. But you can do this in any journal, but I don't know. I love the way they look and the way that they feel. They're really good quality. But if you do see me referencing this, it's because I'm like reading from it and like checking my notes and stuff just to give you guys the best review possible. So let's get into it, shall we? So the first book of 2022 was a 5-star, and that was Cultish by Amanda Montell. So the like subtitle for this one is The Language of Fanaticism. So she goes not just into the idea of cults and what they are, if you're not super familiar with them, and kind of, you know, how they get started and how people find them and why people stay. It's all about that, but with an emphasis on the language that they use to keep you there. The language that makes you feel like you're part of the group, you're where you belong, right? We all want to feel like we're part of the tribe. As human beings, that's like hardwired into us to feel like we belong. That's why we don't like sort of standing outside of the crowd. So this is basically a giant essay, obviously chopped up into like different parts, different categories. And what I really liked was the reason why she is like a perfect author for something like this is because her dad was in a cult in like the 80s, the 70s or the 80s, something like that, called Synanon. I'd never heard of that one. I've heard of big ones like Jonestown. Of course, everybody's heard of like Jonestown or like Rajneeshis. It's from the documentary Wild Wild Country on Netflix. She references it in here, and I had actually already started like the first 2 episodes. I want to say it's like a 6-part series on Netflix. Really, really good. The writing is phenomenal. There are so many good quotes that I wrote down. Always when I'm reading, I'll write down a word that I don't know and then immediately look it up in the dictionary app on my phone. So like for example, I'd never heard of this word, glossolalia. It's the act of speaking in tongues. So if you've ever, I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so I've never been to a church where they speak in tongues, but I definitely like have heard of it. She talks about gaslighting, how they'll do that to sort of keep you involved. And then the really fascinating thing that I found was she doesn't just talk about traditional cults. Like it's not just like Jonestown and stuff like that. She mentioned like Soul Cycle. It's right here on the back. She talks about social media gurus, like following somebody online, being so obsessed with them, wanting any little piece of them that you can have, to the point where you're willing to fork over money for something. Like you think about like celebrities that come out with perfumes and makeup and, you know, skincare and all this stuff, or a clothing line or whatever it may be. It's, in a way, it's culty. Like it is kind of a form of a cult. Basically, I kind of walked away from this one realizing cults can mean lots of different things. But yeah, it was absolutely fascinating. It was 5 stars for sure. Next up is The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. This was so good. This would be really good if you kind of want to step into the sci-fi genre, but you're not super sure, and you don't want to like jump right in with something like Dune. Well, that's more like fantasy. But you don't want to jump into something that's like super hardcore sci-fi and you're like not gonna understand the science talk. This is like soft sci-fi. Our main character is Evelyn. She is a super successful scientist. She basically creates an artificial womb. So she makes like fake amniotic fluid that you can grow humans in. But her husband, Nathan, they haven't been vibing. They've kind of fallen out of love with each other, and she finds out that he has cloned her and he's named the clone Martine, and she's basically all the things that Evelyn is not. All the things that Nathan doesn't really love so much about his wife. He has programmed Martine to be those things, to want kids, which Evelyn does not want, to be a good housewife, which Evelyn isn't the best at because she's always at her lab. There were so many like little twists and turns. There were like 3 big plot twists I genuinely didn't see coming, that really kept the pacing going, and it's like super short anyway, so like I finished it in a couple days, but yeah, highly recommend that one. Again, another 5 stars, really good. So this next one I gave 4 stars. It's definitely one that I would read, like if I had read it in the month of February, I would have been super happy because it's really good for, like if you want something a little bit more like lighthearted and fun and kind of lovey-dovey and warm, this would be really good for February. So this is A Room Called Earth by Madeline Ryan. Super good, super cute. Basically the main character is from Australia and she's autistic. So I picked this up randomly. It's very rare that I go into a bookstore and I pick things up like spontaneously because I'm like normally super laser focused on the things that I want. Things that like, you know, are like on back order at the library or I can't get a hold of or whatever, I'll go into a bookstore and buy them if I'm desperate enough. So I had not seen or heard anything about this one, but the title caught my eye, and then when I saw that she was like it was about a neurodivergent main character, I was all over it. You're basically inside her head. Like every thought that she has, you know. Normally, I hate that. I don't like stream of consciousness. It's never been my thing. It's just like I don't need to know every tiny little thought that pops up into the main character's head, especially if it's not propelling the story forward. But this, I felt like you just have like an instant connection with her, who's unnamed, by the way. The main character is unnamed. But you have an instant connection with her because you're just so wrapped up in her thoughts. She's an overthinker, especially when she's in public, which is definitely why I gravitated towards her and connected with her as a character, because I do that too. I'm always like kind of wondering like what do I look like from the outside, and like very conscious of like my body language and all of that. She meets, oh, so I should have like maybe mentioned the plot. So she meets, it takes place over the course of like a single night. I think she's like going out to a party. It's like the process of her like getting ready and going out, and she bumps into a guy, unnamed, just like she is, but they have like an instant connection. And so they go back to her place and they kind of talk, and it's basically just like this whole rambling conversation, and you're just like in her head the whole time as she's like meeting this new person for the first time. Okay, this was my favorite quote, so I have to share this one. I read somewhere that we're like mountains, and that our day-to-day awareness is the front of who we are, where the sun shines, and everything we're afraid of is the back, in shadow, out of our awareness. Although I have a strong feeling that my ancestors are at the back, and that there's nothing to be afraid of. Not really. I thought that was so sweet, and I've never heard that before. Also, the audiobook. The audiobook's really good, and it's narrated by an Australian woman. So if you like audiobooks, it is on Libby for free. Really good. So yeah, honestly, I feel like the only thing that would have given it that other half stars, maybe if it was longer, like I just wanted more, because there's not like a whole lot of plot, you're just so in her head. I feel like if you're trying to maybe break up a little bit of your, because like February, you're probably reading, you know, it's Black History Month, so you might be reading a lot of like heavier racial stuff right now. It's almost like a palette cleanser. Like it's like a really good palette cleanser between maybe like 2 heavier books. You could like sandwich this one between it to kind of keep things a little light and happy. Yeah, I ripped through that one in like 2 days though, highly recommend. Then the final read of January was There by Tommy Orange. I'm really trying to put more Native American authors on my TBR. I read a lot of Joy Harjo, her poetry. I've read some Louise Erdrich, a few others. Really not that many though. And so There has been on my list for a while. You basically get the story told through this carousel of like 12 different characters. And it's sort of like a slice of life. So you sort of see, you know, their day-to-day life, what it is to be a Native American, to have Native American blood, but to be living in modern society and dealing with that ancestral trauma. They are all headed to the big Oakland powwow. So that's sort of like where we're headed. But I will say that's kind of the only plot that you're gonna get. So if you are like me, and you like super plot-driven books, This is not that. He definitely knows character. He knows how to write people very believably. They're not two-dimensional, they feel real. The whole ending, I'll say, the whole ending, big trigger warning. If you are going through anything rough right now, I mean, which we kind of all are with the state of the world, but if you're like, you can't read anything even remotely traumatizing or it triggers you, do not read this book. So that is it, guys. That's all I've got. Those were the 4 that I read this month. Thank you so much for watching if you made it to the end. Lots more to come, lots more book reviews, writing videos, because I also write. I'm on my 3rd manuscript right now, so there'll be a lot of that. Also journaling videos, because I love to journal. So stay tuned for all of that, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Y'all, I'm a quiet person. I like never talk if I don't have to. So this is like a lot. Birdie. Of like those dark subconscious thoughts are behind us.